Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about Index Card RPG, created by Runehammer Games. So this game is incredibly valuable to me. It's in many ways, it's kind of precious. It's really special, and today I want to talk about the nature of Index Card RPG and the value of Index Card RPG, my journey to the game, and the reason why I think it really is one of the very best tabletop role-playing games on the planet, and why it really has to be in everybody's collection, and everybody should really be playing it as much as possible. All right, but the reason why I'm going to talk about it today is there's a little bit of complexity about the nature and the value of the game. And I only recently, I've liked Index Card RPG since I tried it about 3-4 years ago. And basically, just recently I heard two incredibly intelligent men talking about music. And it helped me to understand more clearly the nature and the value of Index Card RPG. So let me define my terms. So Index Card RPG, when I'm talking about Index Card RPG today, I have had both Index Card, I own Index Card RPG 1E and Index Card RPG 2E. I really like 2E. I think it's a nice improvement on the first game. So everything I'm saying today refers to Index Card 2E. I think anybody who purchases the game should purchase the most recent version of the game. The creator of Index Card RPG is a little unusual. He has produced and written and distributes the game. It's kind of a one-man band. There's a few people helping him, but it's a one-man band. Now, the reason why I don't say his name is the reason why is he uses a pen name. He has chosen to use a pen name. Now, anytime I see a pseudonym because of the nature of the internet, I get a little worried. But I've been following this game for a while, and nothing has cropped up. I think that the use of the pseudonym in this case is for professional reasons and for artistic reasons, and I'm okay with it. It worried me at first. I'm okay with it now. So every time I refer to the creator of Index Card RPG, I'm going to say the IC creator, okay? And that will stand for the creator of the Index Card RPG 2E game by Runehammer Games, which is the publishing company of Index Card RPG. All right, so let's talk about it. All right, so I recently came to a new understanding of the nature of Index Card RPG and the value of Index Card RPG. And I came to that understanding after I listened to Malcolm Gladwell. So Malcolm Gladwell has an amazing podcast. It's called Broken Record. And Malcolm Gladwell, I'm a huge fan of his. He's an intellectual. He's a writer. He's absolutely brilliant. He's one of my intellectual champions. And he's really just incredibly important guy. And when he talks, I listen. You know what I mean? And his podcast is tremendous. I highly recommend it. So he sat down with Rick Rubin. Now, I didn't really know who Rick Rubin was. Rick Rubin is probably one of the most successful American record producers to ever live. All right. So I'm going to use a mnemonic right now. Run, Metal Bieber, run. All right. So Rick Rubin has produced Run DMC. He has produced Metallica, and he has produced Justin Bieber. Run DMC is a pillar of rap. Metallica is a pillar of metal. And Bieber is a pillar of pop, right? And that is a massive range. And every single one of those groups and of course artists have individual performers have sold millions and millions of records, downloads, and so forth. They're all they're all of the highest tiers of their individual musical categories. Okay, and those are just 3 of over 40 groups that Rick Rubin has produced. It is not an exaggeration to say that Rick Rubin is the Michael Jordan of record producing, without a doubt, right? He is just absolutely incredibly talented. So, and all of this is coming from what I learned on Malcolm Gladwell's podcast, right? Because Malcolm Gladwell had a sit down with him and really got to understand who he was and how he did what he did, right? And what Rick Rubin does is he makes hit records, right? He makes sure that the artist is identified. He makes sure that when that music is cut, it is done on the highest quality equipment. he makes sure that that music is distributed to the mass market, right? And none of those things are easy. And Rick Rubin has gotten to the point where he is able to do this like you and I would eat a cup of yogurt, right? It's just something he does, right? A lot of people would say, oh, what does it take to make a hit record? Oh, I don't know. Well, guess what? Rick Rubin does know, and he's proven this hundreds of times, right? He's connected to over 40 groups, that all of which have, actually well over half of which, if you heard 5 to 10 of their songs, your head would be bobbing immediately, right? He's just connected to a massive amount of hit music. He knows what it takes to create a hit song, right? So, Malcolm Gladwell, this intellectual champion, sits down with Rick Rubin, this music mastermind, right? And they start talking, and they can talk about anything, right? But where the conversation goes, and Malcolm Gladwell is a GOAT guy. He wants to know greatest of all time. He wants to get at what Rick Rubin really cares about. And where Rick Rubin cared about, what he talked about the most, right, with Malcolm Gladwell, specifically, were covers that Johnny Cash did, right? And specifically, he talked about one cover, and this is representative of multiple covers, right? But Johnny Cash, late in his life, he did covers of other people's music, right? And Rick Rubin talked about how this came about, right? So Rick Rubin talked about how Johnny Cash, this legendary country singer, was really two men, right? He was Johnny Cash, and I'm going to apply this first name, the man in tan. Rick Rubin didn't use that term, but I'm going to use it, the man in tan. So Johnny Cash, he has a song where he says, I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die, okay? Now, the reality is Johnny Cash never did that, right? He was always pretty much a singer, and he did, did a few things, but the reality is within Johnny Cash, there was a man in tan. There was a guy who wore tan pants and walked into a 7-Eleven and bought a cup of coffee, right? That's just a normal Joe like you and me, okay? But then within Johnny Cash, and this is where what Rick Rubin identified with and what he brought forward, was the mythical man in black. So within Johnny Cash, there is the mythical man in black, and everyone who's ever heard his songs knows this. This is a gunslinger attitude. This is, spurs, ringing under the sun, right? This is iconic country western sound. This is iconic American western feel, right? And Johnny Cash projected this, and he was this in many ways. So Johnny Cash was the man in tan, and he was the mythical man in black, right? And when Rick Rubin was talking with Malcolm Gladwell about music, he talked about many of the different groups that he had produced, but it seemed like what he was really most proud of, right, were these Johnny Cash covers, right? And so let's talk about the cover that Johnny Cash did of Hurt. So Johnny Cash did a cover of Hurt. Hurt is a song by 9 Inch Nails written by Trent Reznor, okay? Now, Hurt, it has this line about an empire of dirt, and it's really like a collection of pain put to music, and it's really incredible. It's an incredible song, right? Now, how did Johnny Cash end up covering it, right? Well, the reality is Rick Rubin had chosen it, right, because he said this song was not written by Johnny Cash, but it belongs in the collection of the mythical man in black. And boy, is that true. When you listen to Trent Reznor's 9 Inch Nails Hurt, covered by Johnny Cash, you are looking at a piece of art that is transcendent, right? It took an incredibly powerful producer to get the rights and put all this together. It took, because Rick Rubin had to, he had to get everything in place. It wasn't easy, right? And he was also getting work from Johnny Cash in his later years when Johnny Cash had absolutely no reason or need to continue to produce art, right? So it's really, really incredible, right? So I'm a huge fan of these late year Johnny Cash covers that are doing songs that Johnny Cash did not. Personal Jesus was another one. One by U2. There's several others, right? And they really are. I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty, right? These are 4 different songs that Johnny Cash never wrote, but he covered them, right? And his covers are just his voice and his acoustic guitar, and they are transcendent, right? It's arguable that they're better than the original, right? Now, you could argue both. You could argue that the original was better. You could argue that Johnny Cash's version is better, right? But the reality is, understanding those Johnny Cash covers created by Rick Rubin for not Johnny Cash, but for the mythical Man in Black, that is understanding. To understand what those are, those pieces of music are, that's what Index Card RPG is. So let me line it up, okay? So in this circumstance, right? Rick Rubin is the IC creator, right? Then Trent Reznor. So we'll look at just Johnny Cash's Hurt, okay? Rick Rubin, the producer, is the IC creator. Dungeons and is the IC creator. Dungeons, and then specifically Trent Reznor is Dungeons and Dragons. Trent Reznor is Dungeons and Dragons, okay? And then finally, Johnny Cash is the IC creator. So when you look at Index Card RPG, what you're really looking... So Index Card RPG is a fantasy tabletop role-playing game that lets you play a Dungeons and Dragons experience with minimalist rules. Minimalist rules. And that minimalism is the same voice and a guitar that you see in the Hurt cover, in the Johnny Cash Hurt cover, right? That's that minimalism. It's pure, it's beautiful, it's darn near perfect, right? And it's really incredible, right? And so that's the thing is, when you look at Dungeons and Dragons, it's just like Nine Inch Nails. It really is just like Nine Inch Nails Hurt, right? Now that song, when you hear Johnny Cash's version, you're thinking it's overproduced, there's too much there. The other thing is, I'm a fan of Trent Reznor as an artist, but I'm not a fan of all of his work. Arguably one of Nine Inch Nails' most famous songs. You could say the lyrics with the following acronym: FYLAA, right? It's a very, very famous song. I can't listen to it anywhere, right? Because there's just a lot there, right? You don't need all that, right? I would say, right? And there's problems that come with Trent Reznor's music, right? Nine Inch Nails music, right? And Dungeons & Dragons is the same. Dungeons & Dragons, because it's 45 years old, and because it's had 3 distinct company owners, right? Because it's owned by a national global corporation, right? Because there's so many pressures on it, it doesn't have the ability to be slimmed down. It literally has no rules light version, right? And it really can't, because there really is this absolutely amazing pressure on the game to be so many things, right? Now, Nine Inch Nails Hurt is an amazing song. It's really, really good, and it needs to be there. Johnny Cash's Hurt doesn't exist without Trent Reznor's work, right? And that song truly belongs in the library of the mythical Man in Black, right? And so we need Dungeons and Dragons to be there. And honestly, in my opinion, no one should listen to Johnny Cash's cover of Hurt until they've heard the Trent Reznor's original, and not just heard it, but really understand it, right? And played it a few times where they got the groove. They hear what's happening, right? It's the same thing with Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons is so precious. It absolutely needs to be the gate of every tabletop role player. It is the gate you walk through, right? But it is not, it is the gate into this beautiful estate, right? And on that estate are many, many tabletop role-playing games, right? And you enter through the gate respectfully. You don't climb over the wall, right? You enter through the gate respectfully, but you don't remain at the gate, right? You take the gate in. You understand what it looks like on the front side, what it looks like on the back side. You look up as you go through, right? You are reverent about passing through the gate, right? And I really feel like Dungeons & Dragons is the gate. But the estate, like the topiaries and the mansion and the pool and the trees, right? that is not actually Dungeons and Dragons, right? I really feel that like Dungeons and Dragons has to be understood and has to be respected. But once you are in, if you are a serious tabletop role-playing gamer, you do not spend your time at the gate forever. You can return to it. You can even leave it. You can even come back, right? But you don't just hang around the gate, right? And here's the thing is, Index Card RPG truly is the Johnny Cash cover of Hurt. It is just minimalist and beautiful, and it is so incredibly useful. So my collection of tabletop role-playing games, I own about 100 core rule books right now in print, right? I own about 200 PDFs right now. So I have 300 games that I enjoy. And believe it or not, those are games I respect and I enjoy, right? I'm not counting games that I took a look at and said, this is a heartbreaker, this is just a reskin or an implementation that really isn't bringing anything new to the art form, right? And within those, right now, today, when I am running a fantasy game, I'm going to Index Card RPG. Index Card RPG also serves as like a GURPS, where you can use it to run almost anything because it is so minimalist. And it is minimalist in layout, it's minimalist in its writing, it's minimalist in its art, right? And guess what? The IC creator created all of that. He did the layout, he did the writing, he did the art, right? He had a little bit of help in there, but not much. Like, this is really a one-man band, right? And it's pretty incredible what he's done. I have used it to run fantasy. I have used it to run Western campaign, and these are one-shots and story arcs and campaigns. And then also story arcs that were, that there's a time hop, and then there's more story arcs on the other end, right? So campaign arcs and one-shots. I don't really run anything. I don't really run any campaigns that are more than 7 sessions. And then if I really want to see like an arc with campaigns, I can run as many as 4 or 5 campaign arcs that are connected together by time and by characters. Right? And so I can run campaigns that are as many as 30, 35 sessions, but nothing more longer than that, right? And the reason why is I think those super years long campaigns are kind of a waste of time for the vast majority of people. And the reason why is people just don't stay in one place that long. I don't think it's a good idea. Even Vox Machina recently did, they cut, here's the end of season 1, and then there's a new group of characters. So I feel like that does prove what I'm saying, that super long campaign arcs, they need to be cut at some point. And it's really not healthy to continue to go forward like that. But I've run fantasy games, I've run Western games with those, I've run science fiction games, and it's just incredibly well done. And when it comes to fantasy, Index Card RPG is, I think it's what the vast majority of people want from Dungeons & Dragons. They want a super fast, smooth running game that is fun, right? I think a lot of people want that. There are absolutely a significant number of people that want a super complex combat simulator, which many, many, many people use Dungeons & Dragons for. And then a lot of other people come to Dungeons & Dragons and are really bending over backwards to get the experience they would have if they used Index Card RPG, right? And by this, they're ignoring large tracts of the rules, they're house ruling things, all kinds of things like that. But if you want a fantasy game that can run extremely fast and can be very compelling and fun and wonderful, and because it is reduced in complexity, can be accessible to many, many, many more people, right? That's a perfect example of Johnny Cash's Hurt, right? There are country fans that absolutely never would go and enjoy Nine Inch Nails, right? But there are literally, I would say probably hundreds of thousands of country fans who, heard Trent Reznor's words in Johnny Cash's cover of Hurt and said, okay, I see the beauty and the value in this. And it is truly incredible. So in order to understand the true nature of Index Card RPG, which is a minimalist, beautiful, perfect, darn near perfect execution of Dungeons & Dragons, done by an incredible producer and done by an incredible performer, which is the IC creator, that's the nature of what it is. It's just Dungeons & Dragons done better, done more accessibly, right? but it can only be experienced after one has gone through the gate of Dungeons and Dragons, right? And then what is its value? Well, its value is it costs like $20 to get the PDF. You can get the printout for like, I think 50, and that's its monetary value, which is the least of its value. The actual value of Index Card RPG is pretty much almost limitless, and the reason why is there's virtually no stories you can't tell, and then here's the biggest reason: there's virtually no people you can't use it with. Whereas that is just not the case with Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons has so much complexity, and it has 45 years of history that needs to be answered for, and for many people, it's a big, big, big blocker, right? So, but out of respect, when you come into TRPG, I really believe everybody should come in through the gate of Dungeons and Dragons. You cannot understand tabletop role-playing games without playing Dungeons and Dragons first. And the reason why is it is the creator of the entire hobby. You have to come through the gate. But when you're in the gate, do not linger at the gate for a long time. It's not good for you. It's not good for your players. It's not good for the community, right? And so I really encourage everybody to understand Index Card RPG is Johnny Cash's cover of Hurt. It's minimalist, it's beautiful, it's darn near perfect. It is, Index Card RPG is a piece of literature, it's a game, and it's a work of art. It's truly, truly incredible. I'd love to hear what you think about Index Card RPG or Johnny Cash or Nine Inch Nails below. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.